Go on, bro. Go on.
No,
sorry, go on.
I was gonna say I actually have a feeling that Tottenham win a trophy this season. I honestly do think they break whatever curse that's over that club. And
you sound like a Tottenham fan.
By the way, before you say this, go look at the videos of Footy Judge Mo, bro. Go look at the videos of Footy Judge Mo before you say any of this. Look at him from last season and look what he says now, bro. Just before you start try backing them, bro. You know.
Will, can I ask you what trophy? Because I was actually with. I said under Mourinho they sack him a couple of days before a game I think they actually could have won. Yeah. I said it under Conte, better managers, they didn't. I'm just asking, what trophy do you think they win?
I think I said it on here already. I think it's going to be the Carabao Cup final. Like, I think it'll be Arsenal versus Tottenham in the Carabao Cup final this year.
Got to get past Man United first.
Yeah, they got to get to that final first.
I'm telling you, I don't know. It's just something about Postecoglou. Like, I think that he does have his faults as a manager, but I like the style of play, and I think Tottenham do have a very talented squad. Like, there's no reason for them to be as bad as they've been in the Premier League in terms of just like up and down. And I think that just on the squad,
Spurs have had better squads, mate.
I really like this manager. Like, it's just something to, and he is proven, right? Like Postecoglou, he has won trophies, I think, everywhere that he's managed. And I know that same thing could be said for like a Mourinho and stuff. And I think, sacking Mourinho like a week before a final, that is kind of crazy. But I don't think they'll do that with the Postecoglou.
Genuinely, as much as I...
Let me correct that for you. Go ahead, 1 minute, actually. Let me correct that for you, bro. They've got a talented 11, not a squad. I think their own fans will tell you that. They don't have a talented squad. I think their 11 on paper, I think it can give most teams in the Prem a run for their money. But when I look at their outside players, and it's the reason why a lot of their fans are outraged. I mean, or bringing on, again, if you're going to go off their last game, yes, they battered the champions 4-0, but Werner, Brennan, Johnson, I mean, are these players you really want in your team to go for certain trophies? If we're being honest, they're not. But they're 11, I agree with you. I think they're 11 on their day. Yeah, man.
That's why when people talk about like their form in the Premier League, to me, if you're a Tottenham fan, I think your Premier League form, unless you're bottom half of the table, I think it's irrelevant because you're not going to win it, right? There's no point in you really making the Champions League because you're not going to win that. I honestly do think that the best chance that they have is Carabao Cup and Europa League. I know that United fans may not agree with that, but I do think Tottenham are a serious threat for that Europa League title. Just focus on the cups and just try and
look. Will
that's what
they might. They might win something, they might not. I don't know, but the reality is, you cannot say, "Well, Ange wins in every other." Because I mean, no disrespect, he's a good manager. I like what he's doing so far. Yeah. Whatever he's won before is absolutely irrelevant here. It's not like he's won something in La Liga. He doesn't, because winning something in Australia and Celtic, it doesn't translate all the time here. No,
you still got it. Yeah,
no, it's not the same because the level of competition is a lot higher here.
Yeah, but Brendan
that's true. But then, like, that's like saying that players who are in Saudi, right? Like,
yeah, but I think Brendan Rodgers
matter because it's like a farmer league. It's like, so then if a player's not scoring goals or like not winning trophies, then you will use that to shit on them. But then if he does win trophies with Celtic or in Australia, then it's irrelevant. So it's kind of like. That's
I'm not downplaying him. I'm not downplaying him. I'm saying, because he himself is saying, I always win something in my second season. It doesn't necessarily apply here when you're coming to the toughest league and the toughest competition and the toughest country to play, because you're going up against other like mammoths in the thing. Right? He hasn't been in that level of competition before.
I think that quote gets taken out of context a little bit. Yes, he said it, but he didn't say it in a sense of like it's inevitable. And he's had some issues with interviewers before. I think you do have overriding principles in leadership. And he's just explaining to folks that, look, I've won things in other leagues. That proves that I can motivate players. I can set up tactics or strategies and whatnot to help win over those leagues. Point taken. These are lesser leagues, but they are overriding themes and principles in life. If we forever say you can't, whatever you did in the past is irrelevant, what's the point of building a career? What's the point of building anything? Like, no one gets to be in the Arteta, for instance, and just start at the very top, go to them and manage the very top club. It doesn't happen. You got to start from somewhere. And he's proved that in other leagues and other places, he can do that. So,
and mind you, Celtic is a much bigger club than Tottenham. If you want to be honest, Celtic, there's more pressure being their manager than being at Tottenham.
The only thing I would disagree with you on when it comes to that is, yes, they're a bigger club with a bigger global audience, but that
league has been, barring when Fergie, so that's how long we're going, broke the stranglehold in the early 80s when none of us were born. None of us on here were born at that point. Since then, there's only been 2 teams that ever win that league. They win typically every now and then. You might see a Hearts or somebody have a good little run throughout a season, but it's such a 2-horse race. And when he was, so I do get your point. They're a bigger club, but genuinely, literally, John Barnes is one of the only managers I've ever seen take over Celtic and make them a bad team.
Terry, do you think
everybody else wins there?
Would it have been more impressive had Postecoglou, for instance, took Kilmarnock and won it? I'm not disagreeing with Will's overarching point. I think there is I like a lot about Ange. I actually think it's not his mentality that needs to change. Last night's an example as to why I think he might struggle to win a trophy, and that's we saw against City. Brilliant attacking football in the transition. Excellent compact nature about his team for the remainder of the game. Last night against Roma, they were still too open in the dying 10 minutes of a game they were winning. And I think to myself, he doesn't often enough kill games off, either with the goals or by shutting the game down. When you're 2-0 up at halftime against Brighton, you know how they play, stink the house out for the second half, but they didn't. They remained really open at 2-1, at 2-2, and then they go to 3-2 down. It's those moments that make me hesitate as to whether we'll win a trophy or not. However, let's wait until the next round of the League Cup's done, because if they win, they knock out Man United, who have got a good chance of winning it. Let's see whether Liverpool, let's see whether Newcastle, let's see whether Arsenal are in that next round, because it could suddenly open up. If all that's remaining in the tournament is Arsenal and Tottenham, it's a derby, that's an equaliser, it could certainly happen.
I know there's no guarantees in football, but I personally think you don't knock them out. But even like I said, even if they knock United out, you've then got Arsenal, Liverpool, and Newcastle in their way. I just can't see them even winning the Carabao. And again, it could be wrong, but
I hear it.
Because, like, the thought of them winning a trophy is just so foreign that it would look weird seeing them lift like an actual trophy that's not in preseason. But
Will, if we don't win it, I want them to win a trophy. If Liverpool can't win a trophy, I like Spurs are like that cute club, not for us fans that don't really do much. So I would want them to win a trophy.
But do you know what it is, Ron? It's not even so much just the trophy, because like in my lifetime, I've seen them win the League Cup. Yeah, it's the fact that it gets to these moments where they, as a fan base, they build it up so much and then they just bottle it. Like finishing third in a 2-horse race, like that'll just never be topped. It's moments like that, trophies or not. That is just, it's Spurs.
Yeah, I swear, bro, I'm the worst guy, bro. I'm just going to piss on their grave, bro.
You know what I always found interesting? My dad is a Spurs fan, but he's always been a very level-headed one. So when I was growing up as a kid, it was always hard being at school where Spurs fans, and everyone should big their team up at the right times. But sometimes, and I remember in the 90s where I'm talking about where Newcastle were really good, Arsenal were good, United, Liverpool, Spurs fans would kind of sit there and they would talk their team up like they were as good. And it wasn't even like we're trying to banter them. It'd be like everyone's entitled to a football opinion. Doesn't matter who you support. You can be an Orient fan and say, I don't think Ian Wright's that good. You're wrong, but you can have that opinion. The club you support doesn't dictate your footballing opinion. But it was when they would say, we're as good as you, we're going to do this, or we'd all just sit there and look at each other and think, where does a team that even then had barely won anything, was never in title races, was regularly mid-table, as kids would look at each other and be like, what are they talking about? I used to go and ask my dad, and my dad just used to say, because my dad actually said that's why I stopped going. He said the amount of times I'd be in the pub and that's what everyone was talking about, how we're as good as this team, we're as good as them. And my dad would be like, almost got in fights with blokes, because it'd be like, we're 11th and they're winning the league. How are we as good as Man United? And my dad said that's why he had to stop hang around with Spurs mates. He said it was just weird delusion.
There's a little clip from Family Guy that validates this. Have you not seen when they all put their hands in and then there's a peg and they start move away the peg? That's Spurs. Like, whenever I hear trophies and Spurs, it's like, how did you get into this conversation?
Listen, they've had some really good teams. I've always found it a bit strange. Everyone's entitled to a football opinion. Doesn't matter who you support. I think a person that supports Bodo Glimt can have a very good opinion on how good or bad a particular Madrid player are. Just because their players aren't as good, don't mean they can't have an opinion. But if I hear someone at a club that's been less successful talking about acting like they are as successful in a conversation, I just find it very weird. Viewers.